after the interdimensional storm several decades ago. Large numbers of interdimensional realms have appeared all over the world. Deities, immortals, ghosts, monsters, angels, devils, elves, and many other legendary interdimensional beings have been discovered. These interdimensional beings are divided into 4 levels: mortal, legend, epic, and myth. Their destructive power far exceeds human imagination. Humans can gain their abilities by hunting interdimensional beings. Aubrey Yu, whose hair had bloomed, was lecturing in the classroom. She noticed a boy sleeping soundly in the corner of the room. Aubrey Yu couldn't help but sigh when she looked at him. The former principal had told her before that geniuses in this world are divided into 2 types. One is called Vincent Zhou, and the other is everyone else. At that time, the former principal's words made a deep impression on Aubrey Yu. But as the bell rang signaling the end of class, Vincent Zhou, who was originally sleeping with his head on the desk, suddenly perked up and sat up straight. He rushed out of the classroom without even looking back, completely ignoring the teacher's feelings. Vincent Zhou ran along the way. He arrived at a secluded corner. Since getting this mysterious phone, Vincent Zhou's life has completely changed. He no longer practices hard. All thanks to the game in this phone. We only saw Vincent Zhou drop a drop of blood on the phone screen. Then he opened a dungeon app. Then he dropped another drop of blood on the screen. The screen underwent a sudden change. A blood-colored figure appeared on the screen. Then he controls the little figure to walk into the ant nest. He starts hunting the bullet ants inside the nest. To others, Vincent Zhou seems like a teenager addicted to the internet who has fallen into degradation. But a month ago, Vincent Zhou is regarded as a genius teenage boy by all the teachers and students at Guideview High School. He might even win first place in the upcoming practical test. However, unexpectedly, a transfer student arrived at Guideview High School and challenged Vincent Zhou. Defeated Vincent Zhou with just one move. And she is a girl. Her name is Grayson, and it's just after that Vincent Zhou no longer practices hard. He has become complacent and fallen into decadence. Others all think that Vincent Zhou is mentally fragile, unable to withstand setbacks and blows. But only Vincent Zhou himself knows. His transformation had nothing to do with that one failure. It was all because of the mysterious phone in his hand. Vincent Zhou watched as the energy crystal burst out, feeling delighted. He quickly controlled the crimson figure to pick up the energy crystal. When the energy crystal touched the crimson figure's finger, it instantly turned into a strange aura that penetrated the crimson figure's body. Almost simultaneously, Vincent Zhou also felt a surge of power entering his body from the phone. He could clearly feel his own attributes increasing. But the only regret is that the crystals dropped in the game can only be absorbed by the bloodthirsty imp, and they cannot be directly brought into reality. Otherwise, it would just be selling some low-level crystals that are not needed. It would be enough for Vincent Zhou to lead a modest life. This man used to be a genius in school, but he was defeated by a transfer student. Since then, he indulged in playing mobile games and let himself fall. But what people don't know is that he can absorb the crystals in the game and apply them to his real self. From now on, even if Vincent Zhou no longer cultivates, his strength is also rapidly increasing. Suddenly, Vincent Zhou saw a somewhat special bullet ant among the group of bullet ants. That bullet ant was all blood red in color, as if it had been dyed red with blood. Moreover, its strength and speed were much greater than the average bullet ant. However, it was still within his ability to handle. It's just that more and more black bullet ants were appearing. It made Vincent Zhou somewhat worried. However, after a fierce battle, Vincent Zhou still successfully killed the red bullet ant. Immediately, a dimension crystal burst out from its body. The blood-colored figure just picked up the dimension crystal. It was then overwhelmed by a swarm of bullet ants. Not long after, the game screen displayed game over. Vincent Zhou slowly stood up. Suddenly, an unusual force emanated from his phone. In an instant, it spread throughout his whole body. The sensation was more intense than any previous absorption of crystal. Perhaps this is the legendary energy skill crystal, but he didn't know what the energy skill of the bullet ant was. Vincent Joe quickly restarted the game. Impatiently, he looked at the game character's information. This turned out to be 7th-stage Hercules Fist Vincent Joe, who was overjoyed. In the afternoon, Fela Fong took Vincent Joe to meet Zhang Li and Easton Tion. They knew that Fela Fong was looking for the 4th teammate, but they didn't expect it to be Vincent Joe. It should be noted that Vincent Joe has not participated in training for more than a month. His current level is probably not as good as it was a month ago. Easton Tion did not want to team up with Vincent Joe in his heart. However, to save Fela Fong's face, Easton Tion proposed to have a competition with Vincent Joe. As the weakest among the three, if Vincent Joe can defeat me, he qualifies to join the team. This shouldn't be considered as bullying him, right? I have no problem. However, there are risks in actual combat, and it's not good to hurt anyone. How about comparing skills with the testing instrument at school instead? The two of them walked up to the testing instrument. Easton Tion took the lead in the testing. I saw him exerting his strength with a punch towards the testing device. The instrument displayed a force of 7. And then it was Vincent Joe's turn to test. Only to see Vincent Joe throw a casual punch. Then he scored a 10 in power. This made the 3 people on site. The teacher who peeked outside the door was also surprised. It's still the old principal with good insight. The 10 points of strength at mortal level. It seems that no one can match Gaifu anymore. But Easton Tion is not convinced. Although you are qualified. But if you think you can really beat me, then you are wrong. Easton Tion pushes away Vincent Joe. Subsequently, he displayed the energy skill Thunder Fist. Just hearing him roar as he struck the testing device. The power level displays 11. It's Vincent Joe's turn to take action. But he looked at the testing device and raised a question. If this thing gets broken, the school shouldn't make me pay for it, right? Don't worry. If you really break it, I'll compensate for you. Vincent Joe nodded. Then I can rest assured. The man obtained a mysterious phone. By playing mobile games, you can obtain special abilities within the game. Now he has been pulled in to undergo strength testing. Only to see golden light radiating from Vincent Joe's fists. The fist smashed onto the testing device in front. At the next moment, sparks flew from the testing device, turning it into a pile of scrap metal. Aubrey, you looked at Vincent Joe in shock. The upper limit of the power testing device is 20. But it doesn't mean he can only withstand a force of 20. To shatter it, you need at least an 8 or 9 stage energy skill. Only at this point did Aubrey you understand the meaning of the former headmaster's words. There are 2 kinds of geniuses in this world. One is called Vincent Joe, and the other is called others. Vincent Joe, walking on the way home, answered a call from his father. He asked his father if he knew about the cell phone. His father replied, "That phone was arranged by your grandfather." Guy Fuan works in the Ant City. One day, an ancient well was excavated at the construction site where he was working. Your grandfather found this cell phone in the ancient well. The phone was still lit up at first, but soon it went black. Since then, it never lit up again. Knowing the origin of the cell phone, Vincent Joe plans to seize the opportunity to go to Ant City to find the ancient well with Guy Fuan. In the following days, Vincent Joe continued to sleep in class as usual. Play games after class. One day, a soldier came to school. After calling out and criticizing Vincent Joe. Vincent Joe's life then changed. Later, Fela Fong and others canceled the agreement to team up with Vincent Joe. It was not until this moment that Vincent Joe realized he was being targeted. Aubrey found Vincent Joe and asked him if he had offended Ethanin. But Vincent Joe had no idea who Ethanin was at all. Aubrey sighed. Helplessly she said, "Forget it. It's not too late to figure this out later. The top priority is to find a team that can participate in the actual combat test. There is a person named Silas Lee in our school. You can team up with him. But as a condition, you must help him achieve the top score in Guideview. Vincent Joe agreed to the teacher's condition. After walking out the door, Vincent Joe called his father. He asked his father if he knew Ethanin. When he found out that Ethanin was his older half-brother from another father, and Grace Ann was his younger half-sister from another father, Vincent Joe was completely shocked. He thought maybe they didn't approve of the marriage between father and Lon Oyang. But father insisted that their relationship was good. Vincent Joe can't understand why they target him. Thinking it over, Vincent Joe feels he is still too weak. If he were an epic-level powerhouse, what could they possibly do to him? By playing mobile games, the male lead can enhance his real-life strength. That day, Vincent Joe was playing games as usual. But after the first energy skill crystal dropped, the next 10 or so did not yield anything. Vincent Joe kept complaining about his luck while controlling the crimson figure to kill the bullet ants. A flash of golden light. A companion egg burst out on the ground. Having a companion egg means having a companion pet. Vincent Joe couldn't wait to control the blood elf to pick up the companion egg. At the moment of contact, a red light appeared from the companion egg and flew into the body of the blood elf. At the same time, a red mark appeared on the back of Vincent Joe's hand. This is the symbol of hatching from the companion egg. Vincent Joe pulls the curtains tight in the house. Start summoning companion pet. The ant pattern on the back of the left hand bursts into a dazzling blood light enveloping the palm. In no time, a boxing glove appears on Vincent Joe's hand. Feeling the explosive power transmitted by the boxing glove. This should be the power-boosting companion pet. Unfortunately, I can't test how powerful the boxing glove is at home. Vincent Joe can only put away the gloves and summon the mutant bullet ant. The ferocious fangs and the blade-like ant legs brought a strong visual impact to Vincent Joe. Vincent Joe plans to ride out again sometime in the future to try ant riding. The next day, Aubrey brought Vincent Joe to the Supreme Royal Wellness Club. Although Vincent Joe was already mentally prepared. But when he saw Silas Lee being so popular at a young age, he was still somewhat surprised. After Aubrey arranged everything, she turned around and left, while Vincent Joe sat on the sofa playing games by himself. After a while, Silas Lee felt a little bored. Watching Vincent Joe, Silas Lee suddenly felt something in his heart. A seductive and enchanting girl whispered a few words in the ear of the girl next to her. The girl laughed and scolded in response. Twisting her waist, she walked towards Vincent Joe. Then Vincent Joe heard a sweet voice in his ear. "Brother, what game is this? Is it fun?" "Fine." Vincent Joe continued to brush the ants without lifting his head. The girl found out that Vincent Joe actually ignored her. Then she reached out and touched Vincent Joe's cheek. She applied a slight force, causing Vincent Joe's face to tilt towards her. But Vincent Joe was at a critical moment in the game. He had no intention of focusing on women. As a result of being disturbed by her, the game directly popped up with the message, "Game over." Vincent Joe, feeling impatient, extended one hand and lightly pushed. The result was that he pushed the girl to the ground with too much force. He expressed that women only affect his reaction speed. Guideview's practical test has officially begun. Vincent Joe arrived at Guideview in City by car. This is an interdimensional realm formed during the interdimensional storm decades ago. Under the influence of the interdimensional realm, the flora and fauna here have mutated. Various dangers can erupt at any time in the vicinity. Therefore, this place has become the location for this operational test. Vincent Joe wandered aimlessly, when his gaze fell on the small hand pattern next to Guideview. Suddenly felt the phone vibrating in his pocket. Vincent Joe took out his phone and found a new photo-taking function on it. Vincent Joe raised his phone and aimed it at the name Guideview. He unexpectedly found that the phone was automatically locked on that small hand. As the loading screen appeared, a dungeon image displaying Guide View Ancient City appeared on the phone. This confirmed Vincent Joe's guess. Vincent Joe dripped a drop of blood on the phone screen. The blood turned into a character in the game. Vincent Joe controlled the crimson character to walk into the city gate. As soon as he entered the gate, a little skeleton rushed out and attacked. The blood-colored figure dodged the skeleton's attack. He struck back and killed the skeleton. An energy skill crystal appears in the game. Vincent Joe was a little incredulous. Just brushed the first monster, and it dropped an energy skill crystal. Unbelievable luck. Vincent Joe clicked to absorb. A cold breath entered Vincent Joe's body through the phone. Learn Skeleton Palm 1 stage low-level energy skill. Vincent Joe summons Mutant Bullet Ant. One person and one ant charged towards the depths of the ancient city. Encountered countless skeletons along the way. But except for the first skeleton encountered at the entrance, nothing else dropped. At this moment, a group of skeletons suddenly appeared ahead. The group of skeletons is crowding around a skeleton knight riding a skeleton horse and wielding a bone spear. The skeleton knight's eyes flashed with red light. Riding the skeleton horse, he charged forward like a tornado. The bone spear in his hand accelerated instantly and pierced into the chest of the blood-red figure. Vincent Joe looked pensive as he watched the ancient city. There shouldn't be such a strong opponent in this exam, right? At this moment, Vincent Joe felt someone walking towards him from behind. It turned out to be Grayson, whom he hadn't seen since she defeated him with a move before. Grayson handed Vincent Joe a USB drive and said, "Uncle Wind asked me to give this to you." However, looking at you now, Uncle Wind's efforts are probably in vain. Grayson turned around and left without waiting for Vincent Joe to say anything. She said without turning back, "Don't mention that you are part of our family when you go out in the future. Our family doesn't have such weak and incompetent individuals." Vincent Joe touched his head and was a little dazed. He wondered when he had started to consider himself part of the family. The male lead, Vincent Joe, obtained a mysterious phone. Improving the in-game characters by playing mobile games. He can enhance the strength of his real self. At this time, the screen of the mobile phone loaded a dungeon named Guideful Ant City. This is actually a game dungeon based on reality. The Invigilator is introducing the exam rules. The assessment, this time, is based on the number of skeletons killed for points. The final score ranking is also determined by the total number of crystals. Vincent Joe and Silas Lee entered the ancient city with a group of 4 people. Mian Su and Liu Jiang are clearing the way ahead. When they encounter skeletons, they can usually defeat them with just one strike. Groups of skeletons are also not a threat at all. Their strength is truly powerful. There's no need to worry about Vincent Joe at all. Vincent Joe decided to verify his speculation when he had nothing else to do. Sure enough, not just the city gates. The layout of the buildings inside here is completely identical to the one in the dungeon on the phone. This inevitably reminded Vincent Joe of the skeleton knight he encountered in the game before. However, according to the current exam regulations, as long as they do not venture into the depths of the ancient city, they will not encounter that skeleton knight. But accidents always happen. At this time, Mian Su suggested that everyone go to the depths of the ancient city to hunt and kill skeletons. Because almost all the skeletons in this area have been killed. To ensure getting the first place in the test, you must explore deeper. Vincent Joe hurriedly interrupted upon hearing this. He is well aware of the terrifying presence in the depths of this ancient city. If they were to go recklessly, they would face enormous risks. But Vincent Joe cannot directly tell them that there is a monster ahead waiting for them to die. Silas Lee agreed to Mian Su's proposal in order to ensure that he would rank first. The 4 of them continued to walk towards the depths of the ancient city. Along the way, Vincent Joe continuously controlled the bloodthirsty doll to challenge the skeleton knight, trying to find its weakness. Even if he couldn't kill it, he must ensure that he could escape with Silas Lee. But no matter how hard Vincent Joe tries, he is always killed by Skeleton Knight with one blow. If this continues like this, maybe they will be wiped out. And just at this moment, ahead, the skeleton burst out a piece of dimension crystal. Looking at everyone stopped in their tracks. Vincent Joe quickly stepped forward to persuade Silas Lee not to go further. I have a strong premonition. If we continue further, there is likely to be a danger to life. And now our score is already enough to secure the first place. There is absolutely no need to take any more risks. Silas Lee felt the seriousness and urgency in Vincent Joe's tone. Decided not to continue further. However, at this moment, an unexpected situation suddenly appeared. A sharp weapon stabbed towards Silas Lee's waist. Then, Mian-Su was chopped down to the ground. Watching Silas Lee's wounds heal automatically, Liu Jiang looked a bit teasing. Unexpectedly, the young Lord Li, who revels in nightlife and flowers, is cultivating the innate invincible skill that requires maintaining a pure body. Who would have thought that a trust fund kid who enjoys nightlife every day and night is actually pretending to be a fool to deceive others? Liu Jiang never expected that Silas Lee had cultivated such a powerful essence art. It is said that essence art originated from ancient practices such as Qigong and martial arts techniques. However, in the past, these techniques lacked energy support, making it impossible to unleash their true power. It wasn't until interdimensional beings appeared with the element of connection that the techniques became useful for humans after absorbing energy crystals. Gradually formed the present essence art. Therefore, different levels of essence art bring different concentrations of energy to people. Silas Lee's innate invincible skill can directly cultivate to the epic level of advanced essence art. And the innate invincible skill has a strange training requirement, which is that it must be practiced with a virgin body. Vincent Joe did not expect that Silas Lee, who is always surrounded by women, would actually practice this kind of essence art. Liu Jiang, are you crazy? Helping mildly kill brother Silas. A good bird chooses a tree to roost. This is just my choice. On the battlefield, swords are drawn and horses gallop. From small to big, I never wanted to compete with the second older brother. I didn't expect him to still not tolerate me. Humph. One mountain cannot contain two tigers. One household cannot have two masters. Blame yourself for only acting like a pig, not a real pig. Only saw Liu Jiang entwined with strands of green light all over. Then he slashed towards Silas Lee with a knife. Wait for the green light to flash by. A legend-level burst scale serpent appeared behind Liu Jiang. Mian-Su was somewhat unbelieving. Why can Liu Jiang, who is only mortal level, possess a legend-level companion pet? As long as a legend-strong cultivator pays an extremely painful or even life-threatening price. Just transfer the legend-level companion pet to the mortal level. Silas Lee snorted coldly. I didn't expect second brother to go all out to kill me. You are indeed very clever. It's a pity though. But you must die today. Liu Jiang no longer hesitated. He quickly rushed towards Silas Lee while holding the jade dagger and slashed towards Silas Lee. But who would have known that they would hear a loud clang? Silas Lee's hand actually caught the jade dagger, while Silas Lee's body was wrapped in the black dark iron armor. At legend level, the companion pet dark armor warrior, it turns out you also use that method. Obtain a legend companion pet at mortal level. No wonder you have no fear. Liu Jiang recognized at a glance what dark iron armor Silas Lee was wearing. No. You are wrong. I don't need to use such cruel methods to obtain the legend companion pet. There is no need for that. Silas Lee is a mortal level Earth Master. He can even summon a legend level dark armor warrior. It turns out it's because he is still a virgin. Liu Jiang couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat as Silas Lee approached step by step. No wonder second brother sees you as a major threat. With such talent, it is indeed terrifying, Liu Jiang said, slowly stepping back. He finished speaking in a few sentences, then suddenly turned around and dashed towards the depths of the ancient city. Silas Lee didn't hesitate and went after him directly. Vincent Zhou saw Liu Jiang fleeing in the direction where the skeleton knight was. He quickly shouted to stop Silas Lee. However, Silas Lee had obviously made up his mind to kill. He chased after Liu Jiang without any hesitation. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go catch up to help brother Silas." Mian Su saw that Vincent Zhou had stopped and shouted loudly while holding his stomach. "You go first," Vincent Zhou said casually. "Coward," Mian Su muttered under his breath. And then he ignored Vincent Zhou. He went after him on his own. Vincent Zhou also doesn't mind. He also wants to help Silas Lee, but chasing after him now is not going to help at all. Liu Jiang and Silas Lee both have a companion pet at legend level, but Vincent Zhou doesn't have one. There is only a dead end when encountering the skeleton knight. It's better to first find a way to deal with the skeleton knight in the game. It may come in handy. Vincent Zhou quickly controlled the avatar and found the skeleton knight just as the skeleton knight charged over. Vincent Zhou controlled the blood-red avatar to advance instead of retreat. A forward roll. Rush to the left abdomen of the skeleton horse. When the skeleton knight thrust the spear down again, Vincent Zhou had already crawled under the abdomen of the skeleton horse. He rolled to the other side of the skeleton horse. Unfortunately, Skeleton Knight is just too powerful. Vincent Zhou must constantly move around Skeleton Horse in order to avoid being hit by his bone spear. But it only lasted less than 30 seconds. The Blood Elf was still pierced to the ground by the Skeleton Knight's spear, dying on the spot. At this moment, cries and crashing sounds came to Vincent Zhou's ears. Silas Lee encountered the Skeleton Knight. Vincent Zhou recalled the scene of the battle just now. Although the Skeleton Knight is very powerful, it appears to have a blind spot for attacks. Just make good use of this weakness of the Skeleton Knight. Perhaps a glimmer of hope could be found. Heard the sound of Silas Lee and Skeleton Knight battling. Vincent Zhou rushed over. Looking at the devastated streets around them, he guessed they must be fighting nearby. In no time, Vincent Zhou saw Silas Lee and Mian Su on the other side of Cobblestone Street. Seeing Vincent Zhou's arrival, Mian Su asked, "Vincent Zhou, why did it take you so long, you youngster? Are you guys okay?" Vincent Zhou asked with concern. Silas Lee said that the current situation is a bit bad. The skeleton knight before us is wearing a dyed cloak. A majestic skeleton horse is beneath him. The eye sockets of the skull are burning with crimson flames, giving a fierce appearance. This is completely different from the chibi skeleton knight in the game. Almost made Vincent Zhou unrecognizable. What made Vincent Zhou even more strange is that this skeleton knight actually treated Liu Jiang beside him, as if he were invisible. He didn't attack him at all. When Vincent Zhou's gaze fell on the armor on Liu Jiang's body, he suddenly understood a few things in his heart. It seems that the skeleton knight is not attacking Liu Jiang. It should be related to the bone armor on his body. Vincent Zhou speculated that the armor should also be a legend creature. Indeed, poverty limits my imagination. He then turned to Silas Lee and said, "It seems your brother is determined to let you die here this time." At this moment, the skeleton knight charged towards Silas Lee. Silas Lee pushed aside Mian Su beside him. He raised his shield in front. With a click, the shield clashed with the bone spear. Suddenly, a powerful gust of air gushed out. Even Mian Su was thrown dozens of meters away. Mian Su coughed a few times while holding his chest. He said to Vincent Zhou, "I'm fine. Hurry and go help brother Silas." On the battlefield at this moment, Silas Lee's mysterious armor was heavily damaged, seeping thin streams of blood. Meanwhile, Liu Jiang on the side occasionally urges Burst Scale Serpent to launch sneak attacks on Silas Lee. Silas Lee snorted coldly, "You are not idle either. Hee. I want to see how long you can hold on against two opponents." Silas Lee is not a true legend-level powerhouse. If this continues, he will surely be killed. Vincent Joe on the side sensed that something was amiss. He shouted at Silas Lee. "How long will it take for you to deal with Liu Jiang if I help you drag the skeleton knight?" 2 minutes. I can take him down in just 2 minutes, Silas Lee said as he fought fiercely, without any hesitation. Okay, then I'll give you 2 minutes, Silas Lee said, waving his hand and removing his own coat. Found a suitable timing. He rushed into the battlefield in big strides. Will the main character of Mortal only roll when fighting against the General Jugu, who is at legend level? Vincent Joe found a suitable opportunity to enter the battlefield. Gestured a skeleton knight with a finger. Vincent Joe's successful taunt caught the attention of Skeleton Knight. Skeleton Knight raised the bone spear and stabbed towards Vincent Joe's head. The next moment, he stabbed towards Vincent Joe's crotch. Vincent Joe broke out in a sweat. If he dodged too slowly, it would be disastrous. Then he drilled under the abdomen of the skeleton horse, neutralizing the Skeleton Knight's attacks into nothingness. Mian-Su struggled to get up from the ground. However, in his eyes, as he looked at Vincent Joe, there was a look of disbelief. Vincent Joe actually successfully managed to hold back the Skeleton Knight. And this also surprised Liu Jiang, who was watching on the side. How is this possible? How can he, a mortal level, hold back the Skeleton Knight? Silas Lee took the opportunity, while Liu Jiang was distracted during the battle, and punched him heavily. Liu Jiang's expression changed drastically, and his figure kept retreating. A hint of fierceness flashed in his eyes. He swung his left arm. A burr-scale serpent burst out, breaking through the arm, entangled towards the pursuing Silas Lee. Taking advantage of Silas Lee being entangled by burr-scale serpent, Liu Jiang suddenly lunged forward. The dagger in his hand stabbed towards Vincent Joe's back. Sensing the movement behind him, Vincent Joe quickly bent down to evade the attack. Afterwards, his body turned sideways. His hands were wrapped in red armor, forming a dark red gauntlet. Seizing the opportunity when Liu Jiang exposed a weakness, he punched, shattering the armor on his chest. He took advantage of his momentum to roll gracefully, and found himself on the other side of the Skeleton Knight. Liu Jiang, who had lost the protection of his armor, was no longer ignored by the Skeleton Knight. The blood-red bone spear pierced through Liu Jiang's chest with a single blow. After Liu Jiang died, his burr-scale serpent companion pet also disintegrated. Silas Lee saw Liu Jiang's failed attempt and felt a sense of self-inflicted misfortune. At this moment, the Skeleton Knight erupted with a blazing blue flame. All of its attributes were greatly enhanced. Mentioning the bone spear, it thrust towards Vincent Joe. The speed was so fast that Vincent Joe was unable to dodge in time. However, just as the bone spear was about to pierce through Vincent Joe's body, Silas Lee and his dark armor warrior appeared in front of Vincent Joe. They took the hit from the Skeleton Knight on his behalf. But his dark armor warrior also suffered some damage. Vincent Joe realized something was amiss. Propose to restrain the Skeleton Knight yourself, and let Silas Lee find an opportunity to deliver a fatal blow to it. The male lead unexpectedly likes the wild and unreasonable woman. Just because he obtained a mysterious essence art, Silas Lee blocked the Skeleton Knight's attack. Vincent Joe seized the rare opportunity to gather the power in his hands. A punch struck towards the Skeleton Knight. Suddenly flames burst forth, and smoke filled the air, waiting for the smoke to dissipate. The Skeleton Knight, however, was unscathed. Then he used another move, the Pegasus Meteor Fist. The punching sound of bang 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 continued to explode on Skeleton Knight's body. However, despite enduring so many attacks, Skeleton Knight did not have a single scratch on his body. Vincent Joe suddenly had a flash of inspiration at this point. He noticed the scar above the left eye of the Skeleton Knight. Suddenly he understood that his left eye was his weak point. Silas Lee then lifted Vincent Joe up high. He himself then rushed towards the Skeleton Knight, using up all his remaining strength. Stepped firmly on the Skeleton Knight's bone spear. Vincent Joe then descended from the sky and punched the left eye of the skeleton knight. Just a crisp sound was heard. The skull of the skeleton knight cracked in response. The dazzling light heralded the final swan song of life. A crystal-clear egg, within which burns a blood-red flame, appeared in Vincent Joe's hand. Silas Lee did not intend to share the spoils equally. Instead, he put on his own coat. Before leaving, he also reminded Vincent Joe not to randomly hatch a legend-level companion egg, because doing so may very likely cost him his life. Vincent Joe says goodbye to Silas Lee. He boarded the bus heading home. He just got off the bus. However, he accidentally kicked something. He looked down. An old man in white clothes and white hair was lying on the ground like a corpse. Vincent Joe was startled. At this moment, the old man on the ground made a light cough. Vincent Joe quickly helped him to a nearby chair. After a conversation, the old man asked Vincent Joe a very serious question. "Young man, do you prefer gentle and demure women or feisty and unreasonable women?" Vincent Joe always feels that the elderly are mentally abnormal. In order to quickly get rid of him, Vincent Joe replied that he likes feisty women. After a moment of silence, the old man suddenly shouted with excitement, "Kindred spirit! I didn't expect this young man to have such good taste in women at such a young age. He is a rare talent. But I see that your energy and blood are so low. Even with good taste, it's hard to achieve much without the strength to act. I have a set of essence art here. Once mastered, it will definitely enable you to handle all kinds of women smoothly." The male protagonist fell into an endless abyss, only because he obtained a mysterious essence art enchanted immortal tome. Upon hearing the old man's words, Vincent Joe was filled with black lines on his forehead. It seems that practicing essence art is just to deal with those aggressive women. Hanan smiled and said, "The uncle kindly understood. I already have essence art. I have not thought about changing my cultivation technique." The old man's expression turned cold upon hearing this. "Continue promoting his technique, although this celestial demon true insight is not considered a top-tier essence art. But it also surpasses your ascetic zen by a few streets, as long as you can practice it well. In the future, it won't be difficult to promote to epic level either." Vincent Joe doesn't know if what the old man said is true or false. He also has never heard of the essence art called Celestial Demon True Insight, and politely declined before quickly walking away. But he had just taken a step forward. Just felt like his body was grabbed by an invisible giant hand. Was forcibly pulled back. Turned around to face the old man. The old man stared at Vincent Joe and said coldly, "I, Weldoist, have roamed the world for decades. No living person has ever been able to say no to me alive." Vincent Joe heard the name Weldoist. His face changed drastically. He remembered the most terrifying character ever born in human history during the chaotic dimensional storm. The demon who single-handedly defeated 27 epic-level powerhouses from the Federation is named Weldoist. Weldoist said lightly, "Now that you know who I am, do you still want it?" "Yes," Vincent Joe replied without hesitation. He did not want to die in the hands of this big villain. Weldoist heard Vincent Joe's answer, but squinted his eyes. "You say yes with your mouth, but you don't really want to in your heart, do you?" Then he took back the essence art in his hands and tucked it into his arms. He took out something else. Then he smiled strangely and said, "You wouldn't want to refuse this old man's kind intentions, would you?" He then stuffed the things into Vincent Joe's hands. Then he straightened his body, coughed lightly, and stepped away along the long street. It was at this moment that Vincent Joe felt the force pressing on him disappear. Vincent Joe looked at the metal piece and couldn't figure out anything. So he packed up and ran home. Vincent Joe took a bath and reflected on his day's experiences. First, Silas Lee was assassinated. Then he ran into the demon king Weldoist. It's clear that I just want to quietly play games, but life always hits me hard. Only sleep can bring me peace of mind. Suddenly Vincent Joe woke up, sitting up straight, covered in cold sweat. Just a moment ago, he felt as if his heart was about to jump out of his chest. The discomfort in his body drove him to rush into the bathroom. He kept vomiting into the toilet. He couldn't figure out what was happening to his body. Why do I feel like I have sleep paralysis? Could it be because of this enchanted immortal tome? He searched through it repeatedly but found nothing unusual. He then washed his face. The uncomfortable feeling also disappeared. He immediately stopped overthinking. She took out her phone and started playing games with Grayson. Okay. The male protagonist, addicted to mobile games, actually cut his own finger. And the reason is that this mobile game actually requires a drop of blood to activate. Crystal, energy skill, companion pet obtained in the game. All can affect the real entity. As long as he keeps playing the game, he will continue to grow stronger. Vincent Joe is currently grinding the dungeon in ancient Imperial City. Although the skeleton knights in the game are weaker than in reality, Vincent Joe is still being killed time after time. Frequent death and game restarts, causing Vincent Joe to look pale and haggard from the frequent blood loss. Vincent Joe feels like he can't hold on much longer. Decided to buy some brown sugar to stock up on emergency food supplies, and then continue lying at home to play games. Through continuous hard training, Vincent Joe finally defeated the skeleton knight and obtained a dimension crystal with a speed attribute of 13. After absorbing it, Vincent Joe's speed attribute only increased to 9. This is actually the attribute limit of mortal level essence art. Want to break through to legend level? Must switch to a higher level essence art. Vincent Joe opened the USB drive entrusted to him by his father, Grayson. Surprisingly, it contained records of a Sunshot secret, a hereditary essence art of a powerful figure in the Federation. Vincent wondered how his father was able to obtain such an essence art. He called his father, and only understood the situation after some inquiries. The essence art book was actually given to him by Grayson. This made the originally doubtful Vincent Joe even more doubtful. Just a short while ago, Grayson and Ethan were still targeting him. Worried that there might be deception involved, he made up his mind not to practice the Sunshot secret. If he doesn't practice the Sunshot secret, where can he get advanced essence art? At this moment, he couldn't help but think of the enchanted immortal tome that Weldoist had given him, combined with the haunting sensation of sleep paralysis he had experienced before. He always felt that his physical condition was related to the enchanted immortal tome. Perhaps there was a way to address his health issues inside. He flipped through the enchanted immortal tome, although he could understand every sentence. But reading it would make him lose focus inexplicably. Once interrupted, he would completely forget all the previous content. Even if he wants to transcribe, he would forget as soon as he picks up the pen. Taking photos with a phone won't capture the text above. Vincent Joe can't remember the enchanted immortal tome, so he can't cultivate. But in order to get rid of the feeling of being oppressed by a ghost, Vincent Joe decided to put this thing further away. At this moment, Vincent Joe's phone rang. It turned out to be a call from Silas Lee. He wants to go to Sunset Academy with him to possess a newly discovered dimensional realm and companion pet. By enrolling here, one can enter it and obtain a companion pet. When Vincent Joe thought of Sunset Academy located in Luoyang, his face darkened, because that is within the sphere of influence of the Yin family. Vincent Joe sat cross-legged, attempting to cultivate the enchanted immortal tome. Various mysterious runes entwined around his body. People have 7 emotions and 6 desires. They can be tempted by various factors. Even immortals and Buddhas are not immune to confusion at times. No one in the world can remember the enchanted immortal tome. And Vincent Joe is helped by the mysterious cell phone. Miraculously, he remembered the scriptures of the enchanted immortal tome. He tried to activate essence art, and found that the original ascetic Zen was no longer callable. Vincent Joe began to have some guesses. He opened his phone and looked at essence art. Sure enough, it has already turned into the enchanted immortal tome, and its other attributes, such as power, speed, etc., have also increased from the original 9 points to 10 points. Vincent Joe finally believed that he had unconsciously mastered the enchanted immortal tome at this moment. After arriving in Luoyang, Silas Lee took Vincent Joe into a villa. After receiving a phone call, he left Vincent Joe alone at home to take care of things. Then he went to the nightclub to socialize. Vincent Joe, who stayed at home, did not continue playing games. Instead, he tried various ways to improve the speed and power of his palm technique. He tried to combine skeleton palm with inch punch. He found an unexpected compatibility between the two, just that the energy consumption is a bit high. Ran out of energy after only a few tries. Thought about it. I'll just keep playing the game. Vincent Joe cut his finger and pressed it against the phone screen. The bloody figure immediately appeared at the ant cave. But it fell on the mutant bullet ant at the beginning. The mutant bullet ant attacks the blood-colored figure. Vincent Joe controls the blood-colored figure to dodge. But because he used up all his energy during practice just now, he cannot counterattack at the moment. At this moment, Vincent Joe was surprised to find that his energy had actually recovered a little. It turned out that the enchanted immortal tome was speeding up the rate of energy recovery. Take this opportunity. Vincent Joe is trying to use a combination of skeleton palm and inch punch techniques. Just heard a loud bang. The mutant bullet ant was actually smashed by a single palm. Then he saw a message on his phone. He understood the advanced technique of the skeleton palm. He transformed the 1-stage skeleton palm into the 10-stage ashen palm to test the power of the ashen palm. Vincent Joe plans to test it with the skeleton knight. Vincent Joe controls the blood elf running around the skeleton knight. He finally circled behind it, and then struck the back of the skeleton knight's head with an ashen palm. With one palm strike, the skull knight's skull exploded like a smashed watermelon. The woman burst into the man's bedroom. Without saying a word, she grabbed Vincent Joe and ran outside. She forced him to put on clothes as they walked. She said she would challenge Vincent Joe to provide a venue. It turned out that the companion egg of Vivian Lee had been taken by the woman before her eyes. In a fit of anger, she wanted to challenge the other party to a competition. The other party agreed to Vivian Lee's request and sent Dorian Gu from the same grade to compete. Dorian Gu gestured with his finger to indicate ladies first. Upon seeing this, Vivian Lee erupted with energy and delivered a mighty downward strike towards Dorian Gu. However, the strike landed on Dorian Gu had no effect at all. Vivian Lee saw the situation was not good and wanted to retreat. But she was grabbed by the ankle by Dorian Gu. She was then lifted by the leg and thrown to the ground. The ground was instantly smashed into a large pit. Dorian Gu looked at Vivian Lee, who was coughing on the ground, without any pity or sympathy. Then he punched Vivian Lee's head into the floor. Just as Dorian Gu was about to KO Vivian Lee, Vincent Joe rushed to the arena and blocked Dorian Gu's ruthless punch. Vincent Joe said that as classmates, there was no need to treat it as a matter of life and death. How about changing the way we compete? Senior, you want me to throw a punch. If you take less than 3 steps back, I will concede directly. Upon hearing this, Dorian Gu readily agreed. He took a stance and waited for Vincent Joe to make a move. Ever since practicing the spiked armor hedgehog skill, Dorian Gu not only trained his whole body to be as tough as steel, but also gained a formidable counterattack ability. He was not afraid of Vincent Joe's punch at all. Vincent Joe's fist smashed onto Dorian Gu's abdomen. Just the sound of metal clashing echoed. Dorian Gu's sturdy body was actually smashed out 4 or 5 meters before coming to a stop. Watching Vincent Joe's bloodied fist and resolute face, Dorian Gu sighed, indicating his willingness to admit defeat. Vincent Joe successfully won the competition for Vivian Lee. Then he carried Vivian Lee and took her to the medical room. Vincent Joe, who had been busy all day, returned to the villa. Vincent Joe started to study the legend-level skeleton knight companion egg. He tried scanning it with his phone. Unexpectedly, the companion egg was miraculously recorded into the phone. Even the quality data of the companion egg was directly analyzed. Vincent Joe tried clicking on the collection fusion. The companion egg unexpectedly fused with the mutant bullet ant to become mutant skeleton ant. Vincent Joe couldn't wait to enter the game to test the strength of mutant skeleton ant. Although there has been some improvement. But in the end, he was still pierced through the body by the silver-winged ant. However, this time it was discovered that the silver-winged ant actually possesses a flying-type energy skill. Just as he was about to continue the challenge, Silas Lee arrived at the villa with his jade-eyed white tiger. He said he would take Vincent Joe to the newly discovered dimensional realm at Sunset Academy. Vincent Joe saw such a cool mount for the first time. Planned to get on it and experience it. After running all the way, Vincent Joe found that this thing is too bumpy. It's more comfortable to sit in a car. The two exchanged identification documents. Then, they smoothly entered underground Buddha City. Vincent Joe and Silas Lee came to underground Buddha City, expecting a peaceful place, but did not expect it to be full of danger. Vincent Joe looked at the eerie white bones in the pool. He thought that the water in Lotus Pond could dissolve flesh and blood, causing instant death upon contact. To hunt the Buddha Heart Lotus, he probably needed to fly over. At this moment, a figure flew past Vincent Joe, only to see that person had wings sprouting from their back, hovering in the air. With a sword in hand, they started to battle the Buddha Heart Lotus in the pool. This person is named Xander Luo, who appears handsome, but is actually quite ordinary. Sure enough, when the 10-meter giant lotus blossom in Lotus Pond bloomed, Xander Luo's white-feathered Pegasus was corroded into a pile of white bones by the water in Lotus Pond. Vincent Joe saw that the white bones were not corroded. Tried to put his hand wearing the skeleton ant glove into Lotus Pond. Immediately verified the guess in his heart. The water in this pond only works on flesh and blood. Understood the key to it. Vincent Joe directly summoned mutant skeleton ant to block the attack of Buddha Heart Lotus for Xander Luo. Then he carried Xander Luo all the way to the shore. Vincent Joe bid farewell to Xander Luo, who had been thanking him all along. Just then, Silas Lee next to him suggested that his skeleton ant try to kill the Buddha Heart Lotus. He even promised that the gigantic Buddha Heart Lotus would definitely yield good treasures. But Vincent Joe wasn't buying it. If their skeleton ant is killed, it will be a big loss. After all, this is not like in games where you can respawn indefinitely. He immediately dismissed the summon and retracted the skeleton ant. Before leaving, he even took a picture of the small hand icon. Load the dungeon of underground Buddha City into the mobile game. Return to the villa. Vincent Joe couldn't wait to strategize the dungeon of underground Buddha City, with the skeleton ant being immune to corrosion. The blood-colored small people easily killed all the Buddha Heart Lotuses in Lotus Pond, and also obtained an energy crystal. Vincent Joe manipulated the blood-red figure to absorb the energy crystal, and his physical body in reality was instantly filled with profound energy as his heart throbbed. Vincent Joe comprehended the 7-stage energy skill Heart Zen. However, just as Vincent Joe attempted to use Heart Zen, suddenly, an attack struck skeleton ant in the game. I didn't expect that there was a boss blood-veined lotus hidden in this Lotus Pond. Vincent Joe controls the skeleton ant to try to battle the blood-veined lotus. But he didn't expect that this blood-veined lotus would be exceptionally tough. When Vincent Joe wasn't paying attention, he planned to hide and escape into the Lotus Pond. However, just as Vincent Joe was preparing to take advantage of the situation, the blood-veined lotus suddenly opened its huge mouth and swallowed the mutant skeleton ant in one gulp. Vincent Joe didn't expect this guy to be so cunning and launch a surprise attack. Without skeleton ant, they could only watch as the other person ran away. Vincent Joe, who was helpless, prepared to explore other areas. The damp, ancient, and crumbling underground Buddha City is filled with ruins carved with images of Buddha and murals. A crimson figure passed through the ancient stone bridge to the other side. Across the bridge was a grand mountain gate with a plaque above that read, "Small Buddhist Temple." Vincent Joe manipulated the crimson figure to move forward, only to mysteriously find that his phone screen had turned black. Vincent Joe witnessed the crimson figure inexplicably dying on the stone steps in front of the small Buddhist temple. Suspecting that the temple might be haunted, because at the moment of the crimson figure's death, Vincent Joe felt like something was being drawn out of his own body. If you continue to explore, it is very likely that it will harm the physical body in reality. At this point, he decided to first go to the ant nest to enhance his strength before continuing with the exploration. The bloodthirsty figure destroyed everything along the way, killing one mutant bullet ant after another. Suddenly, a golden light flashed. A mutant bullet ant's companion egg was exploded out. While looking at the various attributes of the companion egg, the silver-winged ant's figure suddenly flew in from a distance. Vincent Joe didn't expect this guy to attack him by sneak attack without any martial ethics. Vincent Joe lost the opportunity for the first move. He can only control the blood puppet to continuously evade. After several rounds of repetition, finally found the opportunity to make a move. Vincent Joe immediately summoned the mutant bullet ant in companion armor state without hesitation. The silver-winged ant also arrived in an instant, just as the claws were about to stab into the chest of the blood-red figure. The blood-red figure anticipated its movement and struck with a mighty ashen palm. At such a close distance, the silver-winged ant had no chance to dodge. It took this ashen palm head-on. However, the silver-winged ant was not shattered by the attack. It just stood there swaying unsteadily. Seeing this, Vincent Joe seized the opportunity and dealt a heavy blow to the silver-winged ant. Under a fierce beating, the silver-winged ant was finally delivered to Hades by Vincent Joe. With a sharp sound, the silver-winged ant, a legendary creature, was killed, revealing the silver-winged ant companion egg. Vincent Joe wants to hatch this companion egg. But if he forcefully hatches the legend-level companion egg with his current energy, it is very likely that his body will be drained dry. But considering that in the game death can be revived, at most, you will just lose a companion egg when Vincent Joe chooses to hatch it. It seems like a black hole has formed around the companion egg. Continuously drawing the energy from his body, Vincent Joe only felt a burning sensation like an explosion on his back. Unable to hold back, he spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the enchanted immortal tome inside Vincent Joe's body suddenly started to operate automatically. It quickly restored the energy within his body. When Vincent Joe restarted the game again, he found that the legendary companion egg had actually hatched. Now Vincent Joe also has a companion egg that can fly and can finally enter the lotus pond to slay the blood-veined lotus. The silver-winged ant that Vincent Joe painstakingly hatched turned out to be a cutie. Other than crying incessantly, he keeps shouting he's hungry. Moreover, he only eats companion eggs or companion pets. Vincent Joe hates the setting so much that he wants to strangle it. After feeding a companion pet, the silver-winged ant's status immediately becomes full. A pair of wings appeared behind Vincent Joe. However, due to the characteristics of the low-altitude king, these wings cannot fly too high. So they can only assist Vincent Joe in dealing with these non-flying ants on the ground. However, these ants are not to be underestimated. After experiencing Vincent Joe's intense bombardment, they began to unite and transformed into a giant palm several meters high. A single slap sent Vincent Joe into the mysterious space where the ant nest was located. Vincent Joe didn't have time to observe the situation in the ant nest. He was devoured by several silver-winged ants guarding the nest before he could react. The game over. Vincent Joe did not choose to continue challenging the ant nest area. Instead, he went to small Buddhist temple to explore its secrets. But he inexplicably died in front of the small Buddhist temple door several times in a row. This situation made Vincent Joe feel like it was not a boss battle at all. It is more like a door that cannot be entered without using a key instead. However, looking at the entire underground Buddhist city, the energy skill Heart Zen is unique. Trying to activate Heart Zen, he jumped into the gate of the small Buddhist temple. This time he did not die immediately. Instead, he walked a distance inside before dying. After entering the gate, he accelerated the speed of energy consumption. When the energy is completely depleted, he will die suddenly. Only with enough energy support can he truly enter the gate. Figuring out the mysteries within, he decided to go brush up on Buddha Heart Lotus and get an advanced essence art book. At this time, Silas Lee called Vincent Joe. He suggested going together to Lotus Pond to hunt blood-veined lotus. Although Vincent Joe hasn't been able to single-handedly slay the blood-veined lotus in the game. But now the probability of winning by teaming up with Silas Lee and Mian Su is still quite high. And Silas Lee specially found a sky shell that can fly for this battle. Mian Su even found a dragon scale turtle that is not afraid of corrosion by pool water, making sure everyone is well prepared. Vincent Joe instructed Mian Su to command the dragon scale turtle to provide support at any time. He and Silas Lee are responsible for direct combat. Vincent Joe summoned mutant skeleton ant standing steadily on the back of the skeleton ant. Silas Lee summoned the 3 legend-level pets Dark Armor Warrior, Jade-Eyed White Tiger, and Sky Shell. Then the 2 of them, one on the left and one on the right, charged towards the blood-veined lotus. The blood-veined lotus shot out a dozen or so crimson lotus seeds towards them to block their retreat. Vincent Joe then commanded the skeleton ant to leap up and block the crimson lotus seeds. Silas Lee, seeing this, let out a loud shout. He raised his tiger soul blade and cut the crimson lotus seed in half in midair. He then chopped down on the crimson Buddha heart lotus. At the same time, Skeleton Ant also initiated the bone spike to attack Silas Lee. However, it didn't harm the blood-veined lotus at all. Seeing this situation, Silas Lee leaped down on Sky Shell without hesitation. With both hands gripping the knife, he fiercely chopped towards the blood-veined lotus. The tiger's soul blade erupted with a blazing sword aura, like a fierce tiger descending to earth. In an instant, it chopped the petals of the blood-veined lotus into pieces, revealing the black lotus platform and the toad inside. The toad opened its mouth and spit out a toxic arrow, intending to poison Silas Lee to death. After Silas Lee struck with one slash, his whole body was unable to dodge in the air. Just as the toxic arrow was about to be shot at Silas Lee, Vincent Joe leaped into the air. A Hercules fist struck beneath Silas Lee's feet, causing him to dodge the toxic arrow. Then Mian Su supported Silas Lee in the air while he himself jumped towards the lotus platform and delivered a Hercules fist towards the toad, causing the toxic toad to burst open like a bullet. The poisonous water splashed in all directions, covering a large area. Vincent Joe looked back, only to be shocked to find that Mian Su did not go to support Silas Lee, allowing Silas Lee to fall into the pool. At a critical moment, Vincent Joe waved the wings of the silver-winged ant to grab the falling Silas Lee and quickly flew to the back of the dragon scale turtle. Mian Su knew that there was no possibility of surviving once the truth was exposed, directly causing the dragon scale turtle to self-destruct and bringing Silas Lee down with it. Crucial moment. Grayson, who has been observing the battle, summons an angel companion pet to rescue the two. Encountering betrayal by close confidants repeatedly, Silas Lee, feeling downcast, drinks with Vincent Joe to drown his sorrows. Vincent Joe is curious why Silas Lee's second brother Milo Lee insists on killing Silas Lee. After Silas Lee explained the reason, Vincent Joe finally understood. There is actually a hierarchical difference between living beings. Moreover, as the hierarchy goes higher, the gap between the upper and lower levels will become greater and greater, ultimately becoming an uncrossable chasm. And beneath this chasm, humans are fundamentally unable to hunt down creatures of myth level. The historical records claiming that 6 epic-level heroes of the Federation joined forces to kill the first myth creature are nonsense. The real reason is that they also had a myth-level companion pet. Vincent Joe is very puzzled. How did they obtain a myth-level companion pet if they did not kill the myth creature? Silas Lee explained that it was all thanks to divine intervention. Someone bestowed upon the 6 heroes the offspring of the myth creature. Since then, the federal government has established a department specifically responsible for arranging specific individuals to obtain qualifications for divine gifts. And Silas Lee is the first heir of the Lee family's qualification for divine gifts. Milo Lee is plotting to kill Silas Lee in order to obtain this qualification. After Vincent Zhou disrupted Milo Lee's plan to obtain the divine qualification. Worried about retaliation from Milo Lee, he couldn't wait to play games as soon as he got home. Vincent Zhou saw a message as soon as he entered the game. The silver-winged ant is hungry. Vincent Zhou felt a little bit upset. He is not a wealthy person. He can't afford to feed the companion egg at all. But if you want the flying ant to grow, you have to feed it. Vincent Zhou, feeling helpless, had to provide for himself. Just as he was manipulating the blood-colored little man to repeatedly brush through the dungeon. The video of Vincent Zhou and Silas Lee battling the blood-veined lotus was widely circulated within the academy. And Silas Lee also became popular in the academy because of his impressive performance in the video. Due to Silas Lee's radiance, Vincent Zhou didn't attract much attention. The video also appeared on Soren Qiao's office desktop computer at the same time. Soren Qiao watched it several times. He asked Lisa next to him if she noticed anything. Lisa pointed out several movements by Vincent Zhou that did not use energy skill. She guessed that he must have practiced extraordinary essence art. However, Soren Qiao pointed out a doubt. Based on previous information, Vincent Zhou had practiced the common essence art ascetic Zen at least before the assessment in Guideview. But now, there is not a hint of the characteristics of ascetic Zen in Vincent Zhou. This indicates that Vincent Zhou must have received guidance from a master during this period. Combined with the timing of the appearance of the former master Weldoist. Vincent Zhou's extraordinary essence art is very likely obtained from Weldoist. After confirming it in his heart, Soren Qiao asked Lisa to arrange for the arrest of Vincent Zhou on the charge of being an accomplice of Weldoist. A hint of excitement flashed in Lisa's eyes upon receiving the order. She promised to capture Vincent Zhou without fail. The scene shifts to the other side. Grayson, who has finished her morning training, arrives at Vincent Zhou's door. Her mother once said that Vincent Zhou's talent far exceeds hers. But she doesn't believe that a person who gets caught up in games at the slightest setback can achieve anything in the future. Although her mother firmly believes that Vincent Zhou will have an extraordinary future. But Grayson now will prove that she is superior to Vincent Zhou. Grayson knocked on Vincent Zhou's door. Vincent Zhou asked Grayson what's up while playing games. Grayson said in an annoyed tone, "The Sunshot secret manual is real. You can practice it. If you don't believe it, you can call Uncle Wind, and he will help you verify its authenticity." Vincent Zhou is not concerned about the authenticity of Sunshot's secret. Anyway, after practicing Enchanted Immortal Tome, he could no longer practice other essence arts. But he still politely asked Grace and why she gave him Sunshot's secret. Grayson pointed at Vincent Zhou and said firmly, "Of course, to prove that I am better than you. And you were not willing to accept losing to me in high school, right?" "There is no unwillingness. I admit defeat," Vincent Zhou said shamelessly. This caused Grace and's prepared words to be choked back all of a sudden. Then she changed the subject and said, "I'll give you 3 months to practice Sunshot's secret. With your performance at Lotus Pond, you will definitely be able to break through to legend level. Let's compete again when the time comes." Vincent Zhou felt that Grace and was being unreasonable. He frowned and said, "I give up. You win. No need to be so troublesome." Vincent Zhou's attitude immediately angered Grayson. She grabbed Vincent Zhou's collar and insisted on having a competition, saying, "Otherwise, I'll sell you to Myanmar." After saying that, she let go of Vincent Zhou. Vincent Zhou couldn't understand why his mother would be interested in a guy like him. Before leaving, she also reminded Vincent Zhou that if he needed energy crystals for cultivation, he could just let her know. When the competition takes place 3 months later, she definitely won't show any mercy like last time. Watching Grace and's departing figure, Vincent Zhou really couldn't understand this federally recognized prodigy girl. Why did she have to compete with him? Vincent Joe reluctantly accepted Grace Ann's challenge. But he did not show any intention of striving for progress. Instead, he continued playing mobile games. After continuously defeating the Buddha Heart Lotus, he finally obtained the companion egg. Initially planned to hatch it by myself. But when I kept seeing the silver-winged ant constantly indicating its hunger status, had to reluctantly part with the companion egg of the Buddha Heart Lotus and fed it to the silver-winged ant. With a flash of brilliance, the silver-winged ant finally had its fill. But its body did not grow in size. This made Vincent Joe couldn't help but sigh slightly. Feel that the mortal-level companion egg is not very helpful for the growth of silver-winged ant. But just thinking about how much blood it would take to brush out a legend companion egg if we were to feed it with a legend-level companion egg. Thinking back, the fact that I cultivated the enchanted immortal tome has resulted in being unable to cultivate the Sunshot secret. I also don't know how to face Grace Ann's challenge 3 months later. Thinking about all this, Vincent Joe lay on the bed with a headache. At this moment, there was a knock on the door from outside. After opening the door, it was surprisingly Galen Gao, with whom there had been some grievances before. Vincent Joe thought that the other party was here for retaliation. But when he heard that Galen Gao came to apologize to him, he realized that the other party had something to ask for his help. After arriving at a hall with Galen Gao, there were 3 people waiting for him there. After the other party's explanation, it turned out that this person is called Hayden Hui. This time, they are looking for themselves to join forces in killing the Blood-Veined Lotus. Because in the previous video, he battled the Blood-Veined Lotus with Silas Lee. Hayden Hui particularly appreciates Vincent Joe's commanding ability. If it wasn't for the last teammate having issues, they would definitely have been able to kill the Blood-Veined Lotus. Sunset Academy is not lacking in experts like Silas Lee, but it lacks someone with strong leadership skills like Vincent Joe. Hayden Huey's invitation and compliments did not impress Vincent Joe. At the moment, when Vincent Joe flatly refused and turned to leave, Hayden Hui called out to Vincent Joe, asking him to name his own price. Vincent Joe blurted out the price of a legend companion egg without even thinking. Galen Gao immediately became somewhat unhappy upon hearing this. He grabbed Vincent Joe and accused him of asking for an exorbitant price. Hayden Hui restrained the excited Galen Gao, happily agreed to Vincent Joe's request, and directly gave him a legend companion egg. Then our deal is settled. Vincent Joe's silver-winged ant can finally be upgraded. After saying goodbye to Hayden Hui and returning to the training room, Vincent Joe held the legend companion egg in one hand. He summoned the silver-winged ant to take a look. In reality, how would the silver-winged ant devour the companion egg? Vincent Joe placed the companion egg into the mouth of the silver-winged ant. The next second, silver-winged ant's body emitted a shimmering silver light. There was a faint red glow shining through it. The silver and red lights on silver-winged ant's body grew stronger, enveloping its entire body like a gigantic flame of light. Wait until the flame of light gradually subsides, revealing a silver-winged ant twice as large as before. Observing the characteristics of the flame poison beyond its body, suspecting that merging with another insect-type companion pet may result in mutations. When looking at the information about the silver-winged ant again, indeed, there have been significant changes. Those exaggerated data almost reached the limit of a legend pet. Even more surprising to Vincent Joe is that the silver-winged ant actually has an additional energy skill called Magical Needle. Magical Needle is a long-range skill. It launches an ultra-high-speed energy needle that can penetrate through enemies. With this silver-winged ant, there is no worry about being unable to kill the Blood-Veined Lotus. Vincent Joe, almost without thinking, directly chose to enter the game dungeon, riding the silver-winged ant to the side of the lotus pond. Immediately, he commanded the silver-winged ant to fly unhesitatingly towards the center of the lotus pond, where the Blood-Veined Lotus was located. In the blink of an eye, they rushed to the front of the Blood-Veined Lotus. The petals of the Blood-Veined Lotus contracted, as if wanting to devour the silver-winged ant. The silver-winged ant, which was about to be devoured, suddenly dodged like a jet, shooting tens of meters away to avoid being swallowed by the petals. At the same time, its claws slashed towards the petals of the blood-veined lotus like a sharp blade. The blood veins on the petals shimmered, emitting a halo of blood-red light. They blocked the claws of the silver-winged ant. Although the power of the silver-winged ant is already considered top-level and legend level, it was unable to break through the petals due to the lack of energy skill support. The petals were not cut open, but instead opened by themselves, revealing the toxic toad on the lotus platform. Toxic Toad opened its mouth and shot a poisonous arrow of venom towards the silver-winged ant. The silver-winged ant easily dodged it while its tail shimmered with a silver light. A silver light shot straight into the Toxic Toad's forehead. With a loud boom, the Toxic Toad exploded into a storm of poisonous liquid arrows flying in all directions. But the speed of the toxic liquid arrows couldn't catch up with the flying speed of the silver-winged ant. The silver-winged ant shot another magical needle towards the lotus platform. At the moment when the magical needle pierced the lotus platform, it seemed like 20 to 30 columns of blood were spewing out like a volcanic eruption. Suddenly, the blood color burst transformed into a sky full of blood rain falling down, covering an area of nearly 20 meters. Fortunately, the flight speed of the silver-winged ant was fast enough to evade the large-scale spewing. Otherwise, it was feared that it would also be melted into blood water. A dimension crystal burst out from the mutated Buddha heart lotus. Vincent Joe looked at this energy skill crystal, speculating whether it was the key to entering this small Buddhist temple. Vincent Joe evolved his essence art and felt like he was burning with desire. It felt like there was a furnace inside his body, just as he was about to be roasted dry. The burning sensation finally slowly subsided. Instead, a cool feeling surged up. At the same time, many mysterious pieces of information poured into Vincent Joe's brain. The absorption of the blood-veined Lotus Dimension Crystal's original skill, Heart Zen, has been upgraded to Blood Zen. Attempting to activate Blood Zen, a cool breath immediately surged out from the heart, spreading to every corner of the body. An unusual flush appeared on the body, looking somewhat strange. The energy consumption of Blood Zen is much slower than that of Heart Zen. Now he has the ability to explore the small Buddhist temple. He couldn't wait to enter the small Buddhist temple in the game. Just as Vincent Joe expected, he ran all the way to the entrance of the small Buddhist temple without any accidents. There were no dimension creatures found in the courtyard, only a stone stele standing in the middle of the courtyard. Reading the words, "The Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita," on the stone stele, he couldn't help but feel a little confused. The Prajnaparamita Sutra is a well-known name that rings like thunder. A Buddhist believer has derived the essence art from it, which is on par with the Agama Sutra and is considered one of the two epic-level essence arts in Buddhism. But he had never heard of the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita, and the name seemed like a joke. However, after looking at it carefully for a while, he suddenly felt dizzy and his head was about to explode. At a critical moment, the enchanted immortal tome inside him suddenly slowed its rotation speed. The splitting headache sensation unexpectedly eased. When he looked at the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita again, the uncomfortable feeling didn't return. Suddenly, he remembered that the blood zen which had been running all along was depleting his energy. He dashed straight towards the grand hall facing the gate. After pushing open the gate, the first thing that caught his eye was a statue of a Buddha. Although it was just a cartoonish version, it still startled Vincent Joe. It turned out to be a statue resembling a Vajra wrathful tri-faced Buddha. He took a few steps inside. Vincent Joe's body exploded directly into a pool of blood. The game screen instantly went black. Vincent Joe was scared out of his wits by this scene. This small Buddhist temple is really mysterious. It seems that there must be some rules to follow in order to enter. I really admire those predecessors who once relied on their lives to create a world of their own. To enter this Buddhist temple, I'm afraid you can only rely on the stone stele that records the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita. The scripture is too long. But fortunately, those scriptures are not as hard to remember as the enchanted immortal tome. Vincent Joe only memorizes a few paragraphs at a time. When the time is nearly up, he leaves the small Buddhist temple, restores his energy, and then goes back to memorize. Until he has memorized all the scriptures. He found that it was already daylight. He had gone another night without sleep. Just as Vincent Joe was writing down the last sentence of the scripture, the enchanted immortal tome, which had almost stopped working within his body, suddenly started to circulate wildly. But this time, the path of circulation was not the path of the enchanted immortal tome. And on the body of Vincent Joe, whose name is recorded on the stone tablet as the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita, a layer of snake skin unexpectedly shed. This startled Vincent Joe. He casually tore off the shed skin from his body. He had to enter the bathroom to clean himself. He looked at his body in the mirror. Basically, there was no difference from before, just looking a bit more refreshed. Back in the living room, Vincent Joe logged back into the game. After seeing the information about the bloody avatar, I couldn't help but be a little surprised. Since he practiced and obtained the enchanted immortal tome, all 4 of his attributes have been 10 points. But now one of his attributes, physical fitness, has unexpectedly become 11 points. Moreover, he clearly mastered the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita, but it is not being displayed in the game. Suddenly, he seems to remember something. Trying to operate the enchanted immortal tome energy, he immediately restored the way the enchanted immortal tome operates. After operating the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita again, he switched to essence art, and there was a seamless transition between the two with no sense of obstruction. There are often significant differences in nature between essence arts. It is very difficult for a person to practice 2 different essence arts simultaneously. Moreover, the higher and more complex an essence art is, the harder it is to coexist with others. Forcing cultivation can easily lead to self-combustion and death. I was thinking about whether I could enter the Buddhist temple. However, I heard the sudden ringing of a phone. Inside, Hayden Huey's voice came through. "Vincent Joe, it's about time. Let's meet at Lotus Pond. Get to the scene." Vincent Joe then directed Nirvine to siege the Lotus platform. After the toxic toad lays eggs, ordered Tengu Azalea to encircle the toad egg to prevent the hatching of new toxic toads. After everything is settled, ordered everyone to retreat back at least 20 meters. But one of the men did not obey Vincent Joe's command. Ordered Blood Crow to attack the Lotus platform madly without authorization. Blood Crow's blood feathers were seen shooting onto the Lotus platform, leaving it covered in wounds. Suddenly, the Lotus platform erupted with a terrifying explosion. The explosion instantly turned into a downpour of blood that corroded Blood Crow almost completely. At this point, Blood-Veined Lotus was completely slain. The broken Lotus platform was also dragged out. Vincent Joe said coldly, "Blood Crow is not my responsibility. I will not compensate." Princess Consort, who was watching the battle from afar, couldn't help but praise Vincent Joe for his performance. She didn't expect that this kid already knew that the Buddha Heart Lotus would self-destruct. The military in the Western District had to sacrifice 5 legend creatures to figure this out. As a homeroom teacher, Princess Consort has always thought that Vincent Joe is a fallen student who only knows how to play games all day. It seems that from now on, I need to really get to know this little guy better. Vincent Joe obtained a myth-level companion pet that can destroy the heavens and the earth. After fulfilling the agreement with Hayden Hui, Vincent Joe couldn't wait to return to the dormitory and enter the game to hunt down the Blood-Veined Lotus. Killing the Blood-Veined Lotus posed no difficulty for Vincent Joe anymore. Following a standard procedure, he easily completed the kill. With a pleasant system prompt sound, a companion egg burst out. The data of this companion egg is not bad overall, but compared to the Blood Lotus in reality, it lacks several energy skills. With Vincent Joe's current energy level, even if it is hatched, it will only be a juvenile Buddha Heart Lotus. After thinking about it, I have decided to merge it. But when I saw that the compatibility between the variant Buddha Heart Lotus and the silver-winged ant was only 3%, directly chose to give up and not feed it to the silver-winged ant. However, The silver-winged ant showed no obvious changes. The only difference was that the previous slight hunger hints were gone. Then hurriedly rushed to the small Buddhist temple. After transforming the enchanted immortal tome into the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita, Vincent Joe burst into the Buddha hall directly. As he expected, this time he did not die a violent death. However, the Buddha statue in the hall aroused his suspicion. With his limited knowledge of Buddhism, he had never heard of such a tri-faced Buddha. Just as he was puzzled, the tri-faced Buddha suddenly moved. A mysterious formation appeared under Vincent Joe's feet. Then a strong Buddha light burst out, enveloping Vincent Joe's entire body. Immediately afterwards, a vortex spun and 3 companion eggs appeared in front of Vincent Joe. At this time, the phone played the voice of Vajra, king of the 3 realms. Devout disciples walking the mortal realm. Follow your vow. Choose our blessings. Vincent Joe was surprised. I can't believe there are still things as generous as directly sending companion eggs. But I can't view the information of these 3 companion eggs on my phone. Vincent Joe no longer hesitated. He randomly chose one with his eyes closed. When the golden crystal-like companion egg was held in his palm, a system prompt suddenly came. Myth creature Dingting has been confirmed to have hatched. Upon seeing this, Vincent Joe yelled in surprise, and threw his phone away directly. Myth creatures are indeed powerful beings that exist near dimensional rifts. However, the issue is that hatching legend creatures almost drain them to death. Not to mention the myth creatures from legends. Unfortunately, Vincent Joe's speed of throwing the phone was still too slow. A terrifying force had already emanated from within the phone. In an instant, all the energy inside Vincent Joe's body was sucked clean. The cute pet in front of me is actually a terrifying myth creature. It is said that Dingting is the white dog of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and has the ability to know all things in the world. In Journey to the West, it can distinguish between the true and false gods that even the deities cannot recognize. Dingting's current appearance is not that of a white dog, but that of a cute little puppy. Its terrifying attribute data is completely extreme. All attributes are maximized. And it has 4 energy skills. Vincent Joe couldn't help but sigh. Why is such a powerful companion pet only at the mortal level? But the prompt on the phone clearly stated, myth, suggesting that this initial stage probably requires growth, similar to the silver-winged ant. Try the companion form of Dingting. Instantly turned into a golden earring, and fell on Vincent Joe's left ear. Vincent Joe only felt a sudden tremor in his ear. It was as if a clogged earplug had been removed from his ear canal. His left ear became clear and sensitive, many times more than before. Sounds that were originally inaudible. Now he could hear them all very clearly. Suddenly, a woman's moaning sound reached Vincent Joe's ears. It made Vincent Joe feel a little strange. I glanced in the direction of the sound. It turned out to be from the next door. And the person living next door is that proud, aloof, and slightly problematic Grayson. The sounds of painful moans came intermittently. Vincent Joe hesitated for a moment. He decided to go next door first to take a look. But he knocked on the door several times in a row. There was still no sound inside. It seems that something really had happened. Vincent Joe no longer hesitated and mustered all his strength to rush towards the door and crashed into it. He crashed into the specially made anti-theft door of the school several times in a row, but couldn't open it. Grayson collapsed in pain on the ground, looking at the door in front of her without daring to make a sound, afraid of being seen by Vincent Joe in her current miserable state. When there was no sound outside the door, Grayson breathed a sigh of relief. They must have left by now. However, at this moment, the window in the house was suddenly smashed open by someone. Panicked Grayson saw who the person was clearly. It was Vincent Joe, whom she was afraid of being seen by. She said in a panic, "How could you come in from there?" Vincent Joe also knew that he was a bit abrupt. But he was also worried that Grayson might have an accident. He kindly said that he would find a doctor for Grayson. But what came back was Grayson's angry refusal. At this point, Grayson even had the thought of death. Due to her physical condition, she had stomach pain at regular intervals since she was young. Vincent Joe had heard before that girls suffer a few days of pain every month. But as soon as he said this, the embarrassed Grayson got angry and threw a cup at him. The now kicked-out Vincent Joe looked a bit embarrassed. It turns out that it was all a misunderstanding. Luckily, he was not a woman. He then went back to his room. Grayson breathed a sigh of relief after kicking Vincent Joe out of the room. The pain in the body seems to have eased a lot. But when I thought of Vincent Joe's indifferent look, I couldn't help but feel wronged. Do you know why a man drinks blood-tonifying tea every day to nourish himself? Since Vincent Joe got this mysterious phone, he has become obsessed with mobile games. Because every time he starts a game, he needs to drip a drop of blood, which has led to severe blood loss for Vincent Joe, forcing him to brew some blood-tonifying tea to replenish his blood. Vincent Joe just finished brewing the tea when Silas Lee called. He said today is the new student orientation day, and he wants Vincent Joe to join a club with him. After all, most of the tasks assigned by the college require teamwork to complete. So, Silas Lee brought Vincent Joe to the central square to recruit new students to form a club. Silas Lee's sister Vivian Lee has a high regard for Vincent Joe. Want him to join her Vivian Society. And he mentioned that by joining, he can communicate with many young ladies and develop relationships. Silas Lee strongly protested against the behavior of using the beauty plan towards the sisters. Vincent Joe shook his head and said that he had promised Silas Lee to establish a new club with him. Vivian Lee felt somewhat helpless after being rejected by Vincent Joe. I just hope that there will be a chance in the future to form an alliance and complete tasks together. Vivian Lee, Silas Lee, and Vincent Joe said goodbye and squatted down to look for teammates. At this time, a voice came into Vincent Joe's ears. Looked up. It turned out to be high school classmates Fela Fong and Easton Tion. Easton Tion greeted proudly. Vincent Joe, didn't expect to see us here, did you? Surprised to see that both of you also got into Sunset Academy. After some small talk, Silas Lee also found out that they were all high school classmates. So they agreed on the spot and formed a club. Then let everyone go back early to rest and prepare for the practical test of the first lesson tomorrow. Upon hearing this, Vincent Joe asked somewhat surprisingly, Are we testing in Fuching? Of course not. Fuching is an interdimensional realm that was just discovered recently and has not been fully controlled. We wouldn't send these freshmen to take any risks there. Fela Fong added, Based on past experience, we generally choose one of the 4 relatively safe dimensional realms within the academy. Each freshman only needs to be able to kill 1 interdimension creature to complete the task. The more they kill, the better their grades will be. Vincent Joe is very surprised why they are so clear about the test. When he heard Fela Fong say that all this information was from Dimension BBS. Vincent Joe can't wait to know more about Dimension BBS. It turns out that the Federation has established Dimension BBS to encourage people to share information about different dimensional realms. People can post any content on it without the need to use their real names. I hadn't paid attention to the complex dimensional realms before, but now he is a bit anxious to go back and take a closer look at this BBS. Just back to Season's garden, he saw a girl waving hello to him. Hello, my name is Luna Wang. I just moved here today as a specially enrolled student. From now on, we are neighbors. Vincent Joe responded coldly and then returned to the second floor, leaving Luna Wang, a young girl, standing disheveled in the wind. The Federal Dimension BBS does not care about the outlaws obtaining information from the BBS. What's more, there is a generous reward system in place. Dimension points generated through the BBS can be used to exchange for various resources in the mall. The way to obtain dimension points from the BBS is by posting. One type is regular posts. They are obtained by the number of clicks. However, even with tens of thousands of clicks, you only get a few dimension points. To obtain more points, you can choose to publish paid content. Paid posts are not limited in content. Plus, the pricing can be freely determined by the creator. In addition, the government itself and various colleges also provide strategies with relatively low costs. Vincent Joe wants to earn more dimension points. After much consideration, he decided to post a paid post titled, Small Buddhist Temple Strategy Guide. Princess Consort is browsing, Dimension BBS. Suddenly seeing this post by Vincent Joe was a bit surprising. The college's underground Buddhist city is unknown even to the teachers at the General Sunset Academy. And this person can mention the name of the small Buddhist temple. Obviously, they are an insider. Can see that this newly registered account charged 20,000 points for its first post. Not sure if the other party is using a fake account to deceive people. But when I think about the possibility that this is true, it could prevent a lot of people from sacrificing themselves. Princess Consort gritted her teeth and clicked open the post to pay the fee. After seeing the content inside, she looked incredulous. Can the energy skill, Heart Zen, at mortal level really break the strange curse of the stone steps? Is it possible? She worried that she might be taken for a fool by the other party. Vincent Joe is currently running the dungeon in the ancient imperial city. After killing a skeleton knight, finally obtained the long-awaited companion egg. After feeding the companion egg to the silver-winged ant, commanded to fly along the main road. The road ahead was suddenly blocked by a high platform. From afar, the words, Yebwa platform, carved on the platform were not unfamiliar to Vincent Joe. Yebwa is one of the 5 emperors, the son of Daiku, with the title of the god of fire. So Yebwa platform, also known as Fire God platform, is where Yebwa observes the stars at night. However, according to historical records, Fire God platform is not within the ancient city, but should be located southwest of the ancient city. While pondering this, a bright fire suddenly blazed on Fire God platform, and a fiery flame rose from the platform, transforming into a firebird flying towards Vincent Joe. The firebird's speed was so fast that the silver-winged ant evaded the fiery bird's attack using its silver wings. But Vincent Joe did not possess such speed. He realized too late that he couldn't recall the silver-winged ant to become his wings in time. Since he couldn't avoid Vincent Joe, he decided not to hide anymore. A strike from the ashen palm flew towards the firebird. However, the palm made contact with the firebird's body. It was as if he struck the air, feeling no resistance at all. And the firebird had already rushed into Vincent Joe's body. The next second, Vincent Joe's body exploded like a firework. Vincent Joe unwillingly undergoes another rebirth through shedding blood. Before long, he arrived in front of the Fire God platform. This time, Vincent Joe was prepared. In a preemptive move, he turned the silver-winged ant into 4 translucent silver wings that appeared behind him, transforming it into the companion state. Although Vincent Joe really wanted to fly up directly, unfortunately, his silver wings could only fly up to a height of over 10 meters and lacked the ability to soar into the sky. He landed on the stone steps of the Fire God platform. Just as he saw the firebird chasing after him again, he summoned the silver-winged ant and sent out a magical needle, directly exploding the firebird. But the system did not prompt him that he had killed the interdimensional being. Just as he was about to rush towards the top of the Fire God platform, he saw flames soaring into the sky at the top of the Fire God platform, and another firebird flew down. Vincent Joe dared not kill anymore. He just did his best to escape the pursuit of those firebirds, and quickly rushed towards the top of the Fire God platform. Unfortunately, Vincent Joe was mistaken. Even if he didn't kill the firebirds, many firebirds would still rush down from the top of the Fire God platform. Vincent Joe tried his best to control them, but he was no match for so many firebirds. He was quickly overwhelmed by the firebirds and died from their attacks. However, he could already see a stone stele standing at the top of the Fire God platform. At the very top of the stele, there was a faintly visible word, Imperial. Vincent Joe did not immediately re-enter the game. Instead, he pondered his recent experience. When he killed the firebirds, There was no prompt indicating the killing of alien creatures. This indicates that they are not alien creatures. If they are not alien creatures, they may be a type of energy skill. The ancient city in reality is clearly named Guideview Ancient City. However, the game dungeon is called Ancient Imperial City. I wonder if the steal with the word Imperial on the Fire God platform is related to the word Imperial in Ancient Imperial City. I looked at my account information on Dimension BBS and found a BBS email. Princess Consort has been keeping her phone BBS open, waiting for a reply. The discovery at Small Buddhist Temple is truly astonishing. After using your method, the military finally stormed into the Small Buddhist Temple and found a stone stele engraved with the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita. This discovery has shocked the senior military officials. Such stone tablets have also been found in some other mysterious interdimensional realms. And some people have cultivated the essence art on the stone tablets, and even obtained a mysterious companion pet. But the Princess Consort and the high-ranking military officials are well aware. Although this essence art is powerful, it is not something that everyone can cultivate. One must have a corresponding special physique in order to cultivate the corresponding essence art. A volunteer tried to memorize the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita on the monument, but couldn't read much. He screamed in agony, and died with blood flowing from all 7 orifices. The Princess Consort is acting on behalf of the general this time. Vincent Joe replied to the message. The Princess Consort quickly sent a message asking Vincent if he has practiced the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita, and expressed willingness to pay a high price to purchase information on the conditions for practicing the scripture. Vincent Joe was slightly startled. He had no idea what kind of physical condition was needed to practice the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita. However, as soon as he thought about it, he suddenly seemed to have some realization. When he was watching the stone stele back then, it was the enchanted immortal tome that alleviated his pain and helped him practice the scripture. However, he did not want to tell anyone about the enchanted immortal tome. So, he closed the BBS. Princess Consort waited anxiously in front of the computer for his message. Princess Consort felt very upset after waiting anxiously for Vincent Joe all night. Not only was stood up, but also ended up with dark circles under the eyes. But today is the first day of school. She still dressed up and arrived in the classroom. Hello everyone, I am your mentor Princess Consort Princess Concubine. When you see the teacher being so unrestrained, Silas Lee boldly teased, "Teacher, which prince is your husband? If you are still single, you can consider me." Princess Consort is already accustomed to such teasing scenes. She calmly replied, "Of course, but the premise is that you all must graduate successfully under my guidance. Next, I will assign you the first task upon enrollment. It will also be your first test since enrolling. Those who fail the test of killing a demonized general at Hula Pass within 10 days will be eliminated and expelled." The originally noisy classroom suddenly fell silent. This requirement is really too difficult for these freshmen. Princess Consort adjusted her glasses. As long as you are willing to put in the effort, 10 days should be enough time. Starting from now, I will open the access to Hula Pass for classmates for 10 days. After handing out the passes, he left directly, leaving a room full of stunned students. Silas Lee propped his chin and sank into contemplation, feeling that this test was quite tricky. In contrast, Vincent Joe appeared bewildered. Silas Lee explained that Hula Pass is a remnant of an ancient battlefield. Therefore, the interdimensional being inside has become very powerful. The demonized general in the legend creature category is also considered to be of medium to high level. It is said that some special demonized generals have even reached the peak of legend. And most of us newcomers are almost all mortal. Upon hearing this, Vincent Joe became quite interested and planned to go investigate first. At this moment, inside the office, Zane Lu looked at Princess Consort and said, "Teacher, isn't it inappropriate to use the test questions from 2 years ago for special admission students on regular students?" Princess Consort just wants to give these new students a little push. she doesn't actually want to discourage them. And she has already posted the strategy to defeat the demonized general on the Dimension BBS. As long as they can look up the information, they will be able to pass the test. After all, that's the battlefield they will face in the future. But it is far more than that. Hulao Pass is also underground. Vincent Zhou and Silas Lee presented their permits to enter the ancient battlefield underground at Hulao Pass. Groups of demonized soldiers were wandering around. The clothes of those demonized soldiers were tattered, and their eyes were bloodshot. Silas Lee looked around and discovered that they were all demonized soldiers. Silas Lee wanted Vincent Zhou to explore around and see if they could encounter a demonized general. However, Vincent Zhou, who was always cautious, had no intention of taking the risk. He just wanted to find the small hand mark here. After finding the mark, he took a picture with his mysterious phone. Indeed, he successfully downloaded the Hulao Pass game dungeon. Vincent Zhou finally obtained a new dungeon. Now he can show off his skills in front of his teacher. Before that, he studied the information on Dimension BBS. The guide only mentioned how to defeat the regular demonized general. If you encounter the engraved demonized general, you must immediately move away. I don't understand what it is exactly. I have to enter the game and experience it myself. With Vincent Zhou's strength, it's easy to kill ordinary demonized soldiers. A group of 3 to 5 demonized soldiers poses no threat to him. Rushing towards the direction of Hulao Pass. Sliver-winged ant kills the demonized soldier as easily as cutting vegetables. Upon rushing a few miles forward, suddenly saw a demonized general riding a demonized horse rushing towards me. That demonized horse was completely red like a ball of fire cloud. Its speed was astonishing. Almost in the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of the silver-winged ant. The demonized general was exceptionally majestic. The weapon in his hand looked particularly strange. It somewhat resembled the trident of the Sea King in mythology. Vincent Zhou's gaze swept over his helmet, only to notice a shallow circular groove on the forehead of the helmet. Inside was inscribed a cloth character. The demonized general raised his spear and thrust it towards the silver-winged ant. A powerful energy burst forth from the tip of the spear. The silver-winged ant skillfully dodged the attack of the demonized general with its silver wings. At the same time, its tail needle flickered and shot out a magical needle that pierced straight into the demonized general's back. The demonized general roared loudly. The flames bloomed on its body like lotus petals, forming a barrier that forcefully blocked the magical needle. At the same time, the trident in its hand, engulfed in terrifying flames, once again aimed towards the silver-winged ant in midair. Vincent Zhou quickly made the silver-winged ant fly up to a height of more than 10 meters, hoping to take advantage of the demonized general's inability to fly to avoid its attacks. But who knew that the demonized horse under the demonized general suddenly leaped up.